Was I frozen?
I don't know, Paul. How was that for new to? No, still there.
Good evening and welcome to the Pompey Politics podcast. Apologies there, there was a slight issue with our sound. So good evening and welcome to our Baffins hustings.
Yes, good evening, everybody. Oh, what a birthday party we're having today. So thank you, everybody, for joining us. Today is our 4th birthday, episode 152 and still going strong. And as you might imagine, with every party that there comes with strife as well. So we have been bedeviled by technical issues this evening, which Simon has masterfully dragged us through as always. And thank you to all of our guests for their patience. So we are down in Baffins and we have marvelously 3 guests joining us tonight. Simon, do you want to make the introductions?
Indeed. So this evening we are joined by Joe Standen from the Conservatives and by Paul Oakley-Cleife from the Portsmouth Independence Party, and I just noticed I've got their icons in the wrong place, so my apologies. I'm just going to fix that. And late at the last minute, we were joined by Mark Farwell from the Labour Party. So thank you, Mark, for joining us. I am just going to sort out where everybody is on the screen so that their actual names match up. Normal
No worries.
service
So
will resume shortly.
whilst you're doing that, Simon, I will give you the overview of Baffins. So Baffins, right in the heart of Portsmouth, sits kind of on the north-south divide. It is the wharf that is technically in the north, but I always think of it as the south. Those of you that know Baffins, an awful lot of 1930s built houses, very strong community feel in Baffins, range of independent shops on that Tangiers Road, and also has a sort of a sanctuary for migrating geese within its hearts, just next to Baffin's Pond. So politically, historically, it has been one of the stronger wards in the city for the Lib Dems, and Councillor Lindstag, who has served the city well, is stepping down this year. Back in 2019, when Lynn won the seat, had nearly half of the vote, but last year the whole demographics of the seat kind of blew wide open. So the Lib Dems still won it, but with a reduced majority. We saw the Portsmouth Independents field their first candidate and actually take second place very narrowly from the Conservatives, and the Labour Party obviously riding very high in the national polls at the moment. So Baffins, as always, is a fascinating ward. Looks like one where truly, if anyone can get some momentum, it's up for grabs. So we're delighted that we're joined by kind of 3 of the 4 main candidates, and I believe we also have an opening and closing statement that's been sent in by the Lib Dem, who wasn't able to join us tonight.
That's correct. We do indeed, Ian. So yes, so we've got any guest that any candidate that we reach out to and responds to us but isn't able to make the date that we settle with, we do actually give them the offer of being able to provide either a pre-recorded or a pre-written statement for the opening and closing statements, and we'll either play that or we'll read that out for them. So we have indeed got that for Leonie.
And is that recorded or written, Simon?
That is a written statement.
Well, in which case then we will, because we are ultimately flexible this evening. We'll, rather than yourself leading in, as you have to do the reading, then we did our usual very scientific flipping of a coin before the show started, and the gentleman here selected their running order, which means that it was down to Leonie from the Lib Dems to go first. So abandoning your position of complete neutrality, Simon, would you like to start by reading the statement out for the Lib Dem candidate, please?
Yeah, sure. Okay, so just give me a second, and I shall set that up. So, Okay, so apologies there for just some slight delay from a technical issue my end. So I'm just going to obviously read this statement from Leonie. So I shall start the timer. I'm trying to do 3 things at once, and that's obviously not working. So bear with me a second.
Just go for your life. We'll give you the time.
Okay, so oh, sorry, hang on a second. What the heck?
So just while Simon is playing with that and bringing that up, we will also remind everybody that tomorrow is the last day to register for a postal vote. If you can't get there in person or you don't have photo ID, we will keep hammering the photo ID because there is.
Sorry, Ian. It's tomorrow at 23:59 is the last date to register to vote in this election.
Yes.
The last date to register.
We've got another week for postal votes.
No, the day after is 5 p.m.
The day after.
On the 18th.
Yeah, Tuesday.
So Tuesday. Well, so you'll need photo ID to vote in person in this election. If you're not registered to vote in this election, go to the Electoral Commission's website, or if you can scan our QR code, there's links on our website which will take you to their website to enable you to be able to see what you need to do. But you can also check on that site if you're not already, to make sure whether you are registered, because if you are registered you should already have received your polling card, but 23:59 tomorrow evening is the deadline for you to register to be able to vote in this election. 5 p.m. on the 18th, on Tuesday, is the deadline to register for a postal ballot. Postal ballots you won't need photo ID for. And if you don't have any form of photo ID, again, go and have a look at the Electoral Commission's website to make sure that you've got some form of the required ID. But you can apply for free photo ID up until 5 p.m. on the 25th of April. So do bear that in mind. So apologies, I've now caught up with myself. I'm just going to read Leonie's speech, and I'll restart the timer. So apologies, thanks for him.
Oh.
Okay, so I'm sorry to not be with you, but this time of the evening is my daughter's bath and bedtime. I live in Baffins Road with my soon-to-be petty officer fiancée, Kieran, and daughter Olivia. Baffins is a great area, not just because of the green space like the pond or common, but its sense of community. You see it in the things like the fun day, the picnic on the green, or Jubilee Street parties. That's the sort of area I want to raise my family in. I'm standing for the Lib Dems because they have an unrivalled record of delivery in our area. This year alone, I persuaded councillors to fund more CCTV to tackle the fly tipping we all see. This is due to be coming into place in a few weeks. Lynn saved the Lifeline 13 and 14 buses from the axe and got traffic calming for roads like Langston Road. Kadir got the police to join a public meeting on antisocial behaviour last January and has been running lunches to help old and vulnerable community members. Darren opposed plans for homes at St James's, a stance the Conservatives did not support, and he and I have opposed HMOs in St Piran's Avenue and Milton Road. No other candidate in this election spoke against them at the planning committee. We all secured the equivalent of 15 new dentists for our city, including one on Copner Road. And finally, food waste recycling for every house. But there is much, much more to do. I want more things for our young people, like a BMX track, pool, and finally the Moneyfields Hub. More community events like the old Christmas market. Local police tackling things we want, like illegal e-scooters, something the Conservatives downplayed at January's public meeting. Cutting speeding, working on the Idsworth, Neville, Tangier Junction as is finally about to start, and we've secured money for 20 mile per hour signs on hailing and speed cushions in Tangier. If I'm elected next month, I will work on those issues from day one. Thank you.
Thank you, Simon, on behalf of Leonie. And if we can now ask Paul Oakley-Cleife from the Portsmouth Independence, would you like to make your opening address, Paul?
Oh, hello. Good evening. I thought I was number 3, but never mind.
Yes.
Sorry, Paul. No, that is my mistake. Stop. Yeah. You are entirely right, Paul. We're having a minor technical meltdown. Stay calm, Paul. Mark, 2 for the Labour Party.
And Mark, I don't know, just if you want to take a break, if you can just angle your camera down a little bit. We're getting like your nose upwards.
Oh, well, oh, right. Hang on. Now I can lift the seat.
Okay.
Is that better?
That's fantastic. Thank you, mate.
All right. Okay.
Mark, the floor is yours.
Yeah. Thank you. 2 minutes, or was it 1 minute 30?
2 minutes and
Oh,
go.
2 minutes. Right. Okay. Thank you. My name is Mark Farwell. Lived in Portsmouth most of my life, other than maybe a couple of sessions working abroad. I lived in California for a while, teaching in a university in San Diego, and I also continued to work in Germany, mostly in the third semester. I'm a criminologist in my academic life, and I'm also a trade unionist and a pretty seasoned political activist. I've stood for Parliament a couple of times in the last, two of the last three elections, and I've stood in local elections. In Portsmouth, yet to be successful, by the way, but I don't get the best wards because I think I'm a relative newcomer. So in terms of the issues that I think are facing the Baffins ward and things that I would like to see, I think what's going on in Baffins is no different what's going on elsewhere in the city. That there is kind of a few particular problems, I think, which are very evident in the Baffins ward. I know that our project development that we've got going at the moment, which is John Jenkins Stadium, because I'm the secretary of the Portsmouth Supporters Trust, the former owner of Portsmouth Football Club. The trust invested 250,000 into the John Jenkins development, and I know our CEO of Pompey in the Community, she was speaking to Michael Gove, I think it was last Friday, and he was commenting on about cutting crime. Well, that's a thing for me, isn't it? Bringing down crime. But in parts of the Baffins ward, there is considerable antisocial behaviour, particularly around the Baffins Pond area and elsewhere. So the problems that I see is associated with, and it's a citywide thing, of course, and most of these things are citywide, by the way, other than the John Jenkins Stadium development. More GPs, or not enough GPs or dentists, traffic, and particularly, I know that we come in for some criticism last year because of the increased traffic flow going up to John Jenkins, but that's virtually complete now. I agree with Leonie's opposition, by the way, to the proliferation of HMOs, by the way, in the ward included, but citywide, and other things like tackling the cost of living crisis.
Sorry, Mark, you've run over. Can you just draw your remarks to a close?
Yeah, so I would say very similar to the Liberal Democrat candidate. It's about, we have a campaign for living streets, and this is about improving association and community life in Baffins, and if I was elected, that would be my priority.
Okay, thank you,
Mark. And now we're back on track. And Paul, thank you for your patience. You are definitely third. And now the floor is yours.
Can I go now then? Yes,
yes, you can.
Good evening. I'm Paul Oakley-Cleife, candidate for Portsmouth Independent Party. I'm a Baffins resident and have lived in central Baffins for 15 years, prior to which I lived in the grounds of St Mary's House for about 8 years. So I quite know about the community. I'm a person that's very much into community development and work with the community. The party is non-political, so we're open just to community development and talking. A number of issues that I see in Baffins, like Leonie and Mark, is antisocial behaviour, not just around the Baffins Pond area, but around other parks in the vicinity. You're talking about Great Saltons, etc. Also, Tangiers Road shops, which is a subject we talk about shortly. GPs is a major problem within Baffins. I personally have a close relationship with Kirkland's Doctor's Surgery in Copner Road, where I'm a part of the patients' participation group. So I had to take an active role on what's going on within surgeries. If successful as a candidate and be elected, I will wish to work with other doctors' surgeries within the community. Kirkland's have just increased their doctors' fold, so they have more powers. but the increase, because of other surgeries closing down within the city, this puts a lot of pressure on the surgeries. We, like Leonie, were quite successful with dental surgeries, and between Paulsgrove and Cockner, 100,000 places were allocated for patients, which is relief. As I say, antisocial behaviour, parking and recycling is a major issue, and community development. Thank you for your time this evening. Speak to you shortly.
Thank you, Paul. No, really appreciate you being concise there. And so last and by no means least, Joe, the floor is yours.
Good evening, guys, and hello to everyone that's watching. First of all, let me say, Simon and Ian, congratulations, happy birthday, happy 4th birthday, well done. So first of all, my name's Joe Standen. I am the Conservative candidate for Baffins this year. I have lived in Portsmouth my entire life, grew up around the area, and the only time I've really spent any time away from Portsmouth was my time that I spent representing our great city as a member of Her Majesty's Royal Marines, or as it was Her Majesty's Royal Marines, His Majesty's Royal Marines now. Conducted 2 tours of operational duty, one in Afghanistan in 2008 and one in Iraq in 2005. Unfortunately, I was medically discharged from the service in early 2012 and have run my own business and done other bits and bobs ever since. I'm a founder member of the cricket club at Great Sultan's playing fields. So I have quite a large active role in the community in running that. I'm currently the groundsman up there with my dad as well. We sort of sort out the pitch up there and do everything like that. Last year, we put on a big veterans cricket festival that raised over £1,000 for Forgotten Veterans UK. And yeah, a lot of the stuff that's going on in the area, a lot of the things I'm hearing from local residents with issues so far, again, a running theme here is antisocial behaviour. It is starting to become a much bigger problem in the area. We're actually starting to see people being attacked in shops. This is something that I have had a big role in trying to sort out in recent weeks, with getting Donna Jones, Hampshire Police and Crime Commissioner, down to actually speak to shop owners and see what we can do with local residents. I've also introduced a speed calming sign as you come over Cockner Bridge on the corner of Dover Road and Tangier Road, which also hopefully will get a few people to shop locally as well. It's got a bit of advertisement for businesses on there, which again, I know we will cover again later. So I don't want to go on for too long. I know I've reached the end of my time introducing myself. So yeah, thanks for holding the hustings tonight, guys, and I look forward to answering your questions.
Joe.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. Thank you, Joe. Okay, so on to our first question. Ian?
So in terms of the question, and you've touched on it, and so I'd ask you just to keep your focus in. Remember, it's 1 minute for each of these questions, and then at the end, we'll invite you, if you want to chip in and come back on something that one of the other candidates has said. You can have 30 seconds to do that. So if we can keep it brief. Now, you've touched on a number of areas. So question 1 is really to focus in on what are the key issues that are facing this ward. So what are the really important things that you're hearing on the doorstep? And can I ask that first to Paul?
Thank you very much. The key issues I'm hearing on the door from residents, again, is community. Lack of community in Baffins, lack of trust, and the need for change. The residents of Portsmouth are so proud to be a part of Baffins that they want to be prouder, and look forward to myself being a part of that community as councillor for this ward.
Marvellous. Thank you, Paul. And so can I ask the same question, please, to Mark? What are the key issues you're hearing, Mark?
So I haven't done too much campaigning or door knocking to date, but I was supporting Jason Christopher last year, so I heard a lot. So very similar to Paul's point, is that I think Baffins, not unlike other wards, of course, is feeling the cost of living pinch at the moment, and also that there is concerns raised on the doorstep. And obviously, being a criminologist, this is something I would be really interested in anyway, is that the antisocial behaviour. I didn't know as to the extent of the way it was described by Joe, by the way, but I mean, in the main, antisocial behaviour is sometimes a nuisance and sometimes it's criminal. It's always criminal if you receive an order, of course, but nevertheless, I think community solidarity in Baffins, this is a post-COVID thing, I think, is a little bit negative, and I think associational life needs to be improved.
Thank you, Mark. And finally, Joe, what is it that you're hearing on the doorstep?
Hey, I would just like to say, I actually think we have a fantastic community spirit in Baffins. I think we're almost like a little village stuck onto the side of Portsmouth. And the people around the area are really close. We've got some fantastic things on social media, like the Baffins neighbourhood group, that are always alerting people to things. Now, a big thing, again, is antisocial behaviour. It's become more rife in the last sort of year, 18 months since COVID. I think there's a lot of stuff we can do about this with educating young people into not doing this. Also, like I said, I have managed to get Donna Jones, the Police and Crime Commissioner for Hampshire, down to the area. We had a meet and greet with some of the members of the public in the coffee shop down there. We also went to all the shops along the parade and discussed antisocial behaviour and what's been going on. Now, Donna has assured me that we will have a police officer that will continuously do patrols around the area. This has already been picked up on by the locals. I know I'm running short of time, so I will finish up quick. But we will have a police officer with a name, a contact number, and an email address that people can contact. So it'll almost be like having your local Bobby back on the street again.
Thank you, Joe. So, gentlemen, would any of you like to use your 30 seconds to come back on anything the other candidates have said?
Yes, I would. Thank you.
Oh,
yeah, Joe, what I'd like to sort of pick up on is this, you saying that there's going to be a dedicated police officer for Baffins. When's that likely to commence? Because this is the first time I've heard of that one.
So Donna did say the day that she came down, when we invited everybody down to Beanie's coffee shop, and she did say that she would ensure that there was one brought in very soon. I don't actually have an exact date for you of when that's going to be, but it has been seen by local residents that there are more patrols by foot, bike and car in the area within recent weeks.
Thank you.
And
thank you, gentlemen.
Mark, I think also.
Yeah, so I just lower the hand. Yes, I just wanted, again, it was to pick up on something that Joe had said about his communications or conversations with Donna Jones. So I mentioned in the introduction, in that conversation with Michael Gove last Friday, the Friday before last, not the Friday just gone, the Friday before, is that one of the key objectives of the John Jenkins Stadium development, of course, in Baffins, is actually to deal with aspects of anti-social behaviour, because that is a community facility. So obviously I can't lay claim to it all, but I think we are doing something very positive in Baffins, and in conjunction with Donna Jones, I think we're probably doing something which is very worthwhile.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate all your input on that question. And in the interest of time, I'm going to pass you on to Simon for question 2.
Lovely. Thank you very much, Ian. Okay, so our next question, and I think a couple of you have already mentioned it, so it won't be any surprise. So Baffins has a range of independent shops. What needs to be done to protect these? And
police use business rates.
Sorry, I just had some sound there. Beg your pardon. Sorry, Ian, I've lost track of who that's meant to be going to. Sorry.
I think it's
So
me.
that one needs to go first to Joe,
Oh,
then Paul, then Mark.
Okay,
Oh,
thank you very much.
Joe first.
So Joe first. Sorry, Joe.
Okay. So yeah, as I said, we almost have a bit of a village feel to Baffins, I think. The shops along there are fantastic. Now, unfortunately, buying and spending habits have changed post-pandemic. We all know that people are buying a lot more things online, and it is affecting local shops and local businesses. However, what we do have along the parade along Tangier Road and around the other areas of Baffins are a lot of quite niche shops, things that sell specialist stuff, especially like the butchers along the parade and things like that. You won't get the quality of meat anywhere else than you would from your local butcher. So things like that will still bring people out. Now, we definitely need to look into the antiquated way that business rates are sorted out in Portsmouth. This is something that must be done. We also need something from central government to try and help businesses with their gas and electric bills as well. This is not just affecting people at home. I mean, we had the perfect example with Tangier Road Butchers. His bill went up. I was speaking to him recently. It went up from something like £500. He was quoted, the most he was quoted was £7,000 a month to keep his refrigerators on. That's why he was going to close. And luckily, obviously, Ant Middleton luckily stepped in and save the butchers from closing. But yeah, I know I'm out of my time. So guys, please fire away.
Okay, lovely. Thank you. And that next to Paul, please.
Is this me going back to Joe, or am I answering the question myself?
No, that would be you answering the question, please. So Baffins has a range of independent shops. What needs to be done to protect these?
CCTV, please. Okay, more CCTV within Tangiers Road, particularly around the shopping area. As Joe has indicated, there will be a dedicated police officer for Baffins, which will be a bonus and a deterrent. Businesses within Tangiers Road need to find a way of communicating with each other and be given a direct contact number for myself. So if anything is going on, then we can act on it immediately.
Okay, thank you very much. And then finally to Mark, please.
Yeah, thank you, Simon. So the Labour Party last local elections, obviously we did 2022, in Fratton, we ran a campaign, small businesses or independent businesses at the heart of our communities, especially especially living with COVID. I mean, they did such an incredible thing during the COVID pandemic, when we were in lockdown, of course. So there was a couple of things that come out of that campaign. One was there was a proposal that independent smaller businesses keep 63 pence in the pound. Whichever way that pans out in terms of business rates and so on, that's something for the city council to decide, I guess. But also it was two other things. One, there seems to be nobody's dealing with the negative feedback associated with empty shops. There are some, but not many. But the worst thing, or the most urgent thing, is there's a paucity of social enterprises. I mean, in others like Cosham, the social enterprises are a really big thing. We don't seem to be many of them, but I'm sure others that know more than me will tell me that's not quite correct. But anyway, that's what it seems. Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. And just an aside, Mark, if there's any way you can angle your camera down a bit, we're just kind of cutting off at the top of your mouth.
Oh, am I slipping down again?
Yeah.
Let me raise the chair again. Is that better?
Yeah, that's better. Thank you.
Oh,
don't
right.
Don't
I think the chair must be sliding or something.
Lovely. Thank you very much. Was anybody needing to use their 30-second rebuttal to come back at any in response to any of the answers given by any of your fellow candidates?
Yeah, I would quickly actually.
Okay, Joe.
Yeah, just quickly on the. Yeah, I agree, Mark. There are maybe 2 or 3 empty business premises around the Baffins area. That's the whole area. Along Tangier Road, every single shop is actually taken, which is unprecedented for any other part of the city. Now, I believe last year and the year before, Portsmouth actually won Entrepreneurial City of the Year for the whole of Great Britain. So we have a fantastic young enterprise community out there that are looking to start businesses all the time. What we need to do is be able to have properties around the city that these businesses can use at a cheap rate in order to be able to sell their goods or ply their trade. But I think as far as the actual shops being closed, that really isn't a problem that we have in the Baffins area.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Ian.
Marvellous. So next question again, we always feel good when you touch on the issues that we bring up in the questions in your opening remarks. So one of the key questions at the moment is how can we balance the need for affordable housing against the proliferation of houses of multiple occupancy? And can I ask that first to Mark, please?
Okay. Thank you, Ian. So this is not exactly a party line, but this is really my view on this, by the way. So I think HMOs is not a long-term proposition. And I know in the south of the city, particularly in parts of Southsea, I mean, they have just mushroomed, especially in the last 4 or 5 years. So I say that in the main, HMOs have a negative impact on communities and also social solidarity. And the reason for that is because the populations are quite often transient. Students in particular, of course, they're only studying at university maybe for 2 or 3 years. So I think it impacts on communities generally in a negative way. So I think it's investment in affordable housing that's needed, not the proliferation of HMOs, because I think that just extends the problem.
Thank you, Mark.
And I did it within a minute.
You did indeed. And so Joe, affordable housing, HMOs.
I think the problem here is actually far bigger than HMOs. The issue is there is just not the housing stock in place to house everyone that needs it. Unfortunately, we live on an island. The majority of Portsmouth is on an island. However, Portsmouth City Council do own a lot of brown belt land off of the island. And also so do a lot of other local authorities that neighbour us as well. What we must do is get out of this not in my backyard mentality, and we must build on brown belt sites. We must build more affordable homes for people, because otherwise HMOs are going to keep cropping up all over the place. Now, my theory on HMOs is, and please excuse the analogy as well, HMOs are a bit like a dog. There's never a bad HMO. There's only a bad owner. Okay. So it's the landlords that we need to sort out in this situation. They need proper vetting to make sure that they are a responsible landlord and they get in the right tenants for the area. Now, obviously, in an ideal world, it would be lovely not to have HMOs. But unfortunately, with the way that the world is at the moment, they are a necessity sometimes. But Portsmouth City Council, I must say, have come out with new regulations on HMOs, which are very good. So it'd be great to see where that goes in the near future.
Thank you, Joe. And finally, and by no means least, Paul, your position on affordable housing versus HMO.
HMOs for Portsmouth, particularly Baffins, is a very negative idea. HMOs is a government idea and a policy, and does not do good for the community at all. It involves the lack of amenities. There's no infrastructure for that type of resident here, and it causes disruption, and residents do not like it. The parking is a problem. You get 6 people moving into an HMO, potentially that's another 6 car parking spaces. As in affordable housing, we need to find the land, and I agree with Joe on this one. Let's look at brown land and look at that area.
Thank you. Well, it seems we have a universal agreement there. So if you guys are okay to move on.
Yeah.
And Simon.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. And our next question was regarding So with the inflation in food, energy bills, and even council tax typifying the cost of living struggles that many families are facing, what would you see the council do to help? That first to Paul, please.
Thank you. Unfortunately, again, the infrastructure does not allow for this. It is a government policy and government introduction that has brought this to this situation. As an independent, there's not a lot we can do about this. We need to focus on the vulnerable that need that help. There is the hardship fund within the city council, and individually we can help wherever that need is needed.
Thank you very much. Next to Joe, please.
Okay, so it is a bit of a shame that the Lib Dem candidate is not here for this, because I know that the Lib Dem regime that run the city council currently have received vast sums of money to help people with regards with this. So it would have been nice to have her input and see where that money's gone. However, bringing it back to specifically the Baffins area, our local MP, Penny Mordaunt, through the sales of her book, funded the setup of the Baffins food pantry alongside the amazing Jeanette Smith, who has got it off the ground and got that running. Jeanette used to be a councillor in the ward, and she's done a fantastic job with setting everything up, and she's there every single week. Now, I volunteer there as well. It is good news. We have over 100 people 100 members that are on our books now that we help. Now that is great news, but it's also sad news as well. It's not nice to know that there's 100 people out there in our area that need the help. However, they are getting that help. We can only try and do our best for these people, and people like Jeanette Smith and other community leaders around are really digging out blind and doing 100% of the great job for these people.
Thank you, Joe. Mark?
Yeah, thank you, Simon. I agree with two aspects of, actually from Joe and from Paul, by the way. So by and large, the cost of living crisis, especially food inflation, is a government issue. And I know I was a Remainer, by the way, but I can remember our friend Mr. Rees-Mogg saying that one of the great things about leaving the European Union is that food prices will go down. And of course, quite the opposite. And we know the reason for that. But I think the problem is that I think we're still partially seduced by the big society theory from the coalition governments. It's been left by and large, I think, some of the harsher aspects of this to the third sector. So we have a peace centre food bank in Cosh, and we did Portsmouth throughout the whole of COVID, and that continued. And I think the solution is that the revenue support grant, which doesn't really exist anymore, but that's how it used to be, it needs to be reinstated so local authorities can actually deal with it at the local level.
Okay.
Can I come back on something?
Yeah,
please.
I was just going to ask for anyone who wanted a rebuttal. So, Paul, if you've got a 30-second rebuttal on.
Yeah, it's excellent news about the pantry, and I, like many residents, were delighted. When the pantry opened, I approached Jeanette and others for myself to become a volunteer. This was refused, as I was told no candidate was allowed. Interesting, Joe is a volunteer, and I was told because he's a Tory and no other candidates within the city, whether it's myself, Labour, Lib Dem, were allowed.
Okay.
That's a complaint, is it? I suppose.
Anyone else want to make use of their 30-second rebuttal on the responses from your fellow candidates on that question?
Yeah, I would actually.
I did.
I thought you might.
Yeah.
There was a hint.
So, look, as I said, the money for this pantry was provided. The setup was by Penny Mordaunt, who is a Conservative member of Parliament. Now, the reason that I am a volunteer there is I am effectively Penny's voice for the pantry. So I was asked by her to do that. What Paul has been told, or what anyone else has been told, I'm not privy to. That's between whoever he spoke to So yeah, but what I would like to say, I know I'm at the end of my time, is if anybody does need help, the pantry is there to help you. Now it is open every Monday from 10 a.m. till 12 noon, and it is also open every Friday from 4 p.m. till 6 p.m. at St Cuthbert's Church.
Okay.
Thank you all, gentlemen. So we'll move to a less contentious topic, and it wouldn't be a Portsmouth hustings without a question on parking. So parking is an issue in Baffins, and as we move towards more need for electric vehicles and charging points, how can this challenge be met? The parking and the electric charging challenge. And can I ask that first, please, to Joe?
Yeah, of course. First of all, I'll start on the electric vehicles. I think it's still too early to really be able to know exactly what's going to happen as far as charging points on the side of roads and things like that. Also, currently, electric vehicles are extremely expensive. It's something that I think is out of the price range of the majority of day-to-day working people. Now, we do have some great traffic officers on Portsmouth City Council. So I think whatever plans they come up with in the future, I would be happy to go with and work alongside to make that happen. As far as parking in the area goes, same as Portsmouth wide, it's a nightmare. There are too many cars for the area of space that we have. It is a fact. However, there are a lot of disused bus stops in the Baffins area that we could have taken away, old bus routes that aren't used anymore. That could free up space for parking. We also have the issue of a lot of commercial vehicles, namely taxis, parked along places like Tangier Road. This is something that I would definitely tackle if elected. I would bring in areas like the end of Tangier Road, I would bring in a 4-hour no return parking zone for 24 hours, Monday to Friday. This would give people like dog walkers, runners and stuff like that use that area to park the time to do what they need to do. And it would also mean that if anyone that lived in the PO3 area actually needed a permit to park there, they could get one free of charge. But it would mean things like there was about 30 taxis along Tangier Road the other day, just parked there, using it as a free car parking space. Sorry, Simon, I'll wrap up there.
Thanks.
Thank you, Joe. So the parking electrical charging problem, Mark, what needs to be done?
I'm going to sound like a Green candidate now, by the way. I think there should be less cars and more public transport. But anyway, that's not going to happen. So my view is I have a slightly more positive view about electric vehicles, I think, than Joe currently, although I still have some concerns about carbon emissions. That's in the manufacture of electric cars. I don't know whether it does contribute in a significant way to climate change or in dealing with climate change. But so from a pragmatic point of view, I would say parking spaces, they can be suspended in designated residence parking zones and also on-street parking bays. I noticed down Baffins Road the other day, I know it's a wide road, by the way, but I noticed that the parking bays there were quite interesting. But of course, most of the houses were built a long time before cars were in mass use. But I still stick to the final one, fewer cars. But that would be an uproar, by the way, if you ask people to give up their cars. Anyway, thank you.
Thank you, Mark. So finally, Paul, the parking problem and charging of cars.
Parking in Baffins is the same as across the city and much part of the country.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, within the city, there is not a lot that can be done, virtually nothing. The HMO situation certainly does not help with the parking, but we need to introduce some sort of residence parking permits to reduce the amount of cars that people are allowed to have outside. Not that anyone can park outside the properties or for one household. I agree with Joe on the bus stop scenario. Where I live within Baffins, there is a bus stop and double yellow lines, which is still there for the bus routes that are no longer there. The electric vehicle situation, again, there's not enough charging points within the city, but I'm not sure if we're at that stage where we need to think about that, because, as has been mentioned, electric cars are so expensive, and we need to be in reality, people can't afford it.
Thank you all, gentlemen. Anybody want to add anything? In which case, Simon.
Fantastic. Okay. Lovely. So, talking of using more electricity, so with our households using ever more electricity, what are your thoughts about the Aquin interconnector proposals and what that would mean for the city if it does indeed go ahead? And if I can ask that first to Mark, please.
Yeah, thank you, Simon. Obviously, the Labour Party is opposed to the Aquin interconnector. Notwithstanding the environmental damage, I think, well, that's potential, of course. If you read the Aquin literature, of course, it's quite the opposite. But I would say years of destruction from anywhere from Eastney right through up to Lovedene, a destruction of habitat, I think. But I think the main reason, and I think we've discovered this because of what's going on in the Ukraine at this moment in time. I'm with Penny Mordaunt on this. It's the first time I've ever said this about Penny Mordaunt, by the way, but her point on national security and energy security is absolutely spot on. So I will be opposing this until it goes away. That's if it goes away, by the way. Thank you.
Okay, lovely. Thank you very much. And same to Paul, please.
Yeah, I'm very much against the proposal for the Aquin, and would certainly vote against it. Environmentally, I agree with Mark. It would cause a lot of damage, particularly on the Milton Green area where it would come through, and the amount of problems it would cause for the residents of Baffins. Down the Eastern Road, it will cause traffic chaos. And as we all know, once the city causes a problem down the Eastern Road, virtually the whole city shuts down and traffic can't move.
Okay, and lastly to Joe, please.
So yeah, the Aquin intersector, it must not happen. It's plain and simple.
Yeah.
Mark, 100% with you. Penny is right, and Penny has been an avid fighter for this since the very beginning.
Yeah.
This cannot happen. Great Britain cannot have another country with its finger on our power switch. 100%. Like you said again, Mark, completely agree. Ukraine has shown that 100%. However, it's my turn to show my green side now. If this happens, it will be catastrophic on our community wildlife and everything like that. I'm sure everybody knows that Milton Common is built on reclaimed land that is on top of an old tip. There's arsenic in the ground, there's lead in the ground, there's all sorts of dangerous stuff in the ground, asbestos, everything. If that is dug up, it will have catastrophic problems for Langston Harbour, Milton Common, and the whole surrounding area for years and years to come. It cannot happen.
No.
Okay, thank you, Joe. Does anybody need to use their 30-second rebuttal on a subject where you are all in agreement? It's a rare thing, I know. No. Okay.
Well, good to see universal agreement. So let's think about Baffins Pond. It's a well-loved community space, but it's often blighted by antisocial behaviour and littering. What more needs to be done to protect that space, Joe?
Okay, again, the antisocial behaviour, it seems to be a recurring theme, doesn't it? As I said at the start, it is a big problem facing the area at the moment. As I said, we have secured in the very near future a named police officer that the residents will be able to contact. The shops along Tangier Road and other businesses around the area will also have the police officer's contact details as well. Hopefully, they'll be made public also on things like the Baffins neighbourhood page and things like that. Probably have contact details, say, in the library next to Baffins Pond, so we can get it. The patrols by police on foot, bike and car have increased around the area, so hopefully that'll be a deterrent. However, what I do think we need to do is educate the children that are causing this antisocial behaviour and also introduce other things like youth clubs and things like that. I remember when I was a kid, the Stacey Centre was always full of kids doing things. We had boxing club there, all sorts of stuff. I don't really hear anything of that anymore. So we need to find out what it is these kids are, what they want. We need to go into the schools and ask them what they want to keep them occupied, instead of just having them out causing a problem, littering, and just being a nuisance to everyone occasionally.
Okay.
Thank you, Joe. So, Paul, Baffins Pond, what more needs to be done to protect that space?
I think, apart from the police officer Joe mentions, is we need community wardens around that area on a regular basis. We can set up a Baffins community hub page where people, if they want to join, if they'd say for between 6 and 7, they're taking their dog for a walk and they see something untoward, somebody can be contacted immediately. We can work with Baffins Pond Association, which is run by the Lib Dems mainly. They do a great job, but we need to control the litter issue as well. I've worked with Joe on littering in Great Saltons and Tamworth Park, and it's a great initiative, and that I would support Joe in carrying on with. But the Baffins Pond area is a community area and needs to be supported overall.
Thank you, Paul. And last and no means least, Mark, what more needs to be done for Baffins Pond?
I think I said this in the introduction, but not that I want to keep praising the Levelling Up Secretary, by the way, or Minister, sorry, but in that conversation that took place a couple of Fridays ago, and we were talking about Baffins in particular, obviously because the John Jenkins Stadium is in the ward. His summary was in relationship to ours, so I've added a bit of this. So the conversation goes something like, there's been a loss of youth workers, which has really put young people in a spot of where to go in the town, or where to go in the ward, or even sort of broader in the city and so on. So the conclusion is that the development is a really positive thing, because it brings a new resource into a local community, which is likely to lessen some of the more antisocial behaviour that's been plaguing, well, not plaguing is a bit strong, but it's become very apparent in Baffins. So I think that's a positive. The Labour Party is not claiming it, of course, because it's nothing to do with the Labour Party. But I've been involved in it as a secretary of the trust and a candidate, of course.
Thank you. Anybody want to come back? Marvellous. Over to Simon.
Okay. Oh, quite a bit of agreement. Okay, so
very disturbing.
It can be, but it can be both surprising and unsurprising at times, because they're all things, I guess, that are that not really many people are likely to be in disagreement on. Okay, so the almost certain outcome of this election with regards to control of the council will be for a no overall control. How would you ensure in that situation that you get the best deal for Baffins and for its residents? And if I can ask that first to Mark, please.
Oh, I didn't answer this one because it said in the email, Nelson residents.
Oh, apologies, that was us rushing to copy and paste the email to you. Sorry, mate.
Oh, right. I was a bit confused by that. So obviously, it will be no overall control. Well, I'd be surprised if it's anything to the contrary. But anyway, I think, to cut the long story short, is that I think the Labour Party needs to ensure that it maintains its third position on the council. Obviously, we're doing everything we can to make that a reality. But you have to make, when there's NOC, you have to make compromises sometimes with people that perhaps you don't share the same views, but pragmatism must reign supreme. And in some respects, it's a good example of democracy, but on the other hand, it means sometimes you don't get a lot done.
Okay.
So we will cooperate, of course.
Okay. Joe?
Okay, so I've got quite a strong stance on this. I firmly believe, and people may think I'm mad, but with our university, our culture that we have in our city, our armed forces representation, that Portsmouth genuinely is one of the greatest cities in the world. And I would quite happily work with anybody from any party if it meant it was something that was the best for Portsmouth. It doesn't matter what colour tie you wear. What matters is what's best for Pompey. And that's all that bothers me.
Okay. Short and sweet. Paul, last but not least.
As an independent candidate, I have the benefit and the luxury of being able to talk to any other party without fear of any sort of other parties getting involved. I can work with the residents and the council as an independent for the benefit of Baffins.
Okay, thank you very much. Does anybody need to make use of their 30-second rebuttal on that question at all? Lovely. Thank you very much.
Marvellous.
Ian.
So with my numbering system on my spreadsheet in ruins, I think this is the final question. So I'm going to ask you all just to focus in, is that if you are successful, what is the one thing that you'd want to have changed or made a real difference to at the end of your term? And can I ask that first to Paul?
Yes, it's not down to me, it's down to the residents and what they wish. I will work with the residents solely, listen to the residents, work for them and with them for the benefit of Baffins and act on their needs.
Marvellous. Thank you, Paul. Mark.
Yeah, this is a very straightforward one for me. So if successful, I think the biggest challenges that we have today in the city and in other cities in this country is the challenge of inequality. We need to do something about associational life, and also we need to at least accept that associational life is the lifeblood of any democracy. And currently the Labour Party in this city only has one councillor north of Fratton. So we need more Labour presence, in the name of democracy, by the way, in the north of the city. We really do. So I'd like to contribute to that.
Thank you, Mark. And last but no means least, Joe, what's your big aspiration?
Okay, so kind of along the same lines as Paul, I believe a local representative, especially someone in a position of a councillor's role, what I want is secondary. I am, or hopefully I would be, the people's voice on the council. So the people of Baffins' voice on the council. So what they want is effectively what I want. However, I would like to leave a lasting impact come the end of my term. Something that I would really like to look at introducing into the Baffins area is a Baffins community hub, which would actually be, Mark, going back to what we were talking about earlier, we would put in one of the disused premises, one of the disused shops. This would provide a permanent free home for the Baffins community hub, the Baffins community pantry, because they are paying rent where they are at the moment, which is a necessity, I know. However, it would provide a free home for them. And it would also be a warm, safe place that the elderly and young alike could all come, have free Wi-Fi, tea, coffee, and it would just be a nice community place. We do have some great community centres around the area, but I think a nice central focal point, which has been a real success in other parts of the city as well.
Thank you, Joe. Anybody want to add anything? In which case, that takes us on to our closing statements. And so, Simon, over to you, and I believe you will open up first by reading Leonie's closing statement.
Yes, I will. So just bear with me a second, gents, while I just get all that. I'll get all that sorted. When it comes to each of your turns, I'll let you know when we're quite ready to go, just so that nothing gets missed. So bear with me a second.
Sorry, Simon.
Hello.
Simon, I know we've rattled through this pretty quick because unlike a lot of these hustings, we've actually agreed on quite a lot. Is there anyone watching that has put any questions forward that we might be able to answer quickly, or is that out of the question?
I think what you're asking there of Simon, I know you posed it to Simon. Simon at the moment has got about 6 screens open, and is having to juggle a number of different points. So we are about on time in terms of where we have caught up a little bit because you guys have been brief, but we're not massively under time, and we'd like to give you the opportunity to make those closing speeches in good time.
No worries at all. Thank you.
Fair question, though.
Okay, so we're going to do these in the same order that we did with the opening statements, but the closing statements are only a minute. But those will go in the order of Leonie's written statement, which I will read out, then Mark, then Paul, then Joe. Bear with me a second. Okay, so I'm just going to go back to with one of the 5 things that I'm trying to do at the same time. Apologies for the wait there. So I'm just going to start the timer and away we go. Okay, so this is Leonie's closing statement. I'm doing this not because I am a politician. I was not in any party a year ago. I am doing it because I want to make the place I live in even better than it already is. I want it to be safer. That's why I got my Lib Dem colleagues to fund CCTV for things like fly tipping and tackling speeding on roads like Langston, Hayling and Tangier. I want it to be somewhere our young people can thrive. That's why we got money for a BMX track and finally broke the logjam at Moneyfields. I want it to feel even more of a community through more social events and for the police to actually care about us, not their political masters. I also back the Lib Dem policy of licensing all HMOs. I know Tories say it's theirs, but they did not even attend the meeting where it was passed. My background as a social worker and NHS youth coordinator working with kids with cancer means I will be a different councillor, straight talking, always fighting for our area and caring about its people. Please elect me. Thank you. Okay, so that was Leonie's speech. And then, as I said earlier on, so the next up is Mark. So just give me a second, Mark, and I'll tell you when I'm ready for yours. Okay. No. Someone's banging about a bit in the background somewhere. Right, apologies for the delay.
Yeah, no problem.
So, Mark, when you're ready.
Okay, thank you very much, Simon. Okay, so in closing, I'd like to say 2 main things, really. One is, as a sociologist and a criminologist, I know that criminology is my main discipline these days. I really do believe, at the core, in the health and well-being of all people who live and work, not just in our city, but elsewhere in the country. But it's very important for our city, and that is absolutely vital for our communities to thrive. I believe that my involvement and my expertise, not just my academic and my professional expertise, is that I could make, I think, an outstanding contribution to the lives of people in our community, especially Baffins Board and more widely in the city, of course. And as part of my job, I work with public policy in areas of health and housing and social care, and I believe that this has helped me develop a real understanding of the problems and the issues that are currently facing people in Portsmouth and beyond. And even more importantly, I'm passionate about challenging inequality and discrimination and injustice of all kinds, and working with people in their communities to improve everyone's life. Associational life is absolutely essential. There's too much exclusion, and we need to be more inclusive. Vote for me, and I'll do that for you.
Thank you very much, Mark. Okay, so next will be Paul. So bear with me a second, Paul, and I'll just let you know when we're ready for you. Okay, so Paul, when you're ready.
This is very scary because I'm basically looking at a blank screen and talking to a blank screen, but I'll move on from there. My closing statement is I've mentioned throughout this evening about working with the community. I'm extremely sincere about that. Not just the young people that we've discussed, but the feeling of working with the elderly, which Baffins has quite a high load of, and disabled people. St Cuthbert's have a luncheon club that needs to be supported. City Life have an Unforgettables weekly meeting for the elderly that needs to be encouraged, and they will promote more people coming in for the community. Doctors' surgeries, as I've said before, I work very closely with and want to maintain that. The transport for this area is not very good. We need to work with the bus companies to see if we can extend the bus from Tangiers Road to go to Burfields and possibly Morrison's for people to use those facilities in the area. But if elected, I will certainly support the residents and work with them, for them, and it's not my campaign, it's their campaign.
Okay, thank you very much, Paul. So just bear with me a second. Last but not least, Joe, let me just get ready for yourself. Okay, and when you're ready, Joe.
Lovely. Cheers, Simon. So, simply, throughout the campaign so far, I've been by far the most visible candidate. I've been out and about all the time, and I have a proven track record so far of what I say I do. I've arranged litter picks around the area, which Paul has kindly helped me with as well. I've managed to not just secure funding, which the Lib Dems keep saying. I've actually managed to introduce a traffic calming sign already before I've even been elected. So if I am elected, then I will definitely get more traffic calming measures in place. I'm helping businesses along the road and on Tangier Road as well. I've been out in the community. I'm an active member of the community. I help at the pantry, as I said as well. And I think the people of Baffins know enough now to know me, that they know no matter what happens, I will go into battle for them, and I will make sure that no matter what happens, I will always do my very best to get the best for Baffins. So if I'm lucky enough to get your vote on May the 4th, you can guarantee that I will go into battle for you.
Okay, thank you, Joe.
So thank you to all of our candidates tonight. Very far-reaching range of questions, and thank you all for taking the time to give us the detailed answers that you have, and for giving up your evening to be with us on our 4th birthday. So all that remains for us is to wish you all every success in the campaign to come.
Yeah.
And we will sign out, because you've been listening to the Pompey Politics podcast. My cat has been, for those watching, Enid Blyton, and I've been Ian Tiny Morris.
And our guests have been Paul Oakley-Cleife for the Portsmouth Independence Party, Mark Farwell for Labour, and Joe Standen for the Conservative Party. I've been Simon Sainsbury. Please do join us at 6:27. Our next hustings is on the 20th of April, which will be the Central Southsea hustings, and then we've got another hustings on the 23rd, which is the East Ian Craneswater hustings. And we've got another one on the 30th, which is Hilsey. But we're currently trying to schedule in a hustings for Miltons. We've got interested candidates there willing to take part. So if you are a candidate that isn't already signed up to the hustings that we've got left, please do get in touch with us, studio@pppodcast.uk, and we'll be happy to invite you along. But as we were saying earlier on in the show, don't forget, 23:59 tomorrow evening is the last chance you've got to register to vote in this election. 5 p.m. on Tuesday the 18th is the last chance that you've got to register for a postal ballot and therefore not need photo ID to be able to vote in this election. And the 25th of April is your last chance at 5 p.m. to apply for free photo ID to be able to vote in person. But you've been listening to the Pompey Politics podcast. Please do like, follow, subscribe if you'd like to see more of our content. And thank you very much for joining us, all of these candidates, and for joining us on our 4th birthday.
Dinner could be turned off. What? Dinner could be turned off. We can't turn off yet.